Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Advisor with Stacey Chillemi. And today I'm really excited because we have a very special guest on the show today. We have Geoffrey, and he is an amazing individual. He is from a wonderful company called Performance, and he has worked there for many years and has such great wisdom and knowledge from working with so many people. And today he's going to share some of that with us today. Before we begin, I just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, iHeartRadio and Speaker and YouTube for sponsoring this show today. And I just want to say thank you. And if you like it, please share and like the video and like the podcast. So today, Joffrey, I am so excited to have you on the show because I love the fact that you talk about the power of working with people, gaining trust, and how that plays such an important role when you're in business. Now, before we begin, can you tell everybody a little about yourself and what you do and how you came, to be where you are today?
Sure, it'd be my pleasure, and thank you for having me on the show. I've been looking forward to this. As you said, my name is Geoffrey Toffetti. I'm the CEO of Frontline Performance Group. We've been in business 32 years, and we've always worked exclusively with frontline teams. These are the hourly employees that service the guest or the customer for a variety of businesses. We've worked in everything from car rental to theme parks, and now our primary market is hotels worldwide. We work with about 2,500 hotels in over 100 countries. And we work with the front desk teams primarily, although we're also working in food and beverage and in full service dining and bars. But essentially, for us, the potential of people is brought to life at the front line because these are hourly employees, sometimes new to the workforce, and they're being asked to be the face of the business.
Hmm.
There's some statistics that say 70% of the GDP of the United States flows through the front line, and yet
Right.
they're often neglected. They don't receive all the training they should. People don't view them as strategically as they should.
Right.
And we found that to be our niche is we invest time and technology and know-how into these frontline teams, and then they end up generating a lot of revenue for customers, and they improve the customer and guest experience because they learn how to engage the customer, who is often a different demographic than them, that's in a different socioeconomic strata than them.
Right.
And we teach them how to be confident, how to be an ambassador for their brand. And then ultimately they make more money because the programs that we support tend to have an incentive component to it. But you can imagine when you spend all your time going into other people's other businesses, essentially into their living room,
Yeah.
and then trying to build culture, you have to be pretty good at culture building.
Yeah.
And the buzzword that was really popular for the last decade or so is employee engagement. We've always been in the employee engagement business, although it didn't take on that term until about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had to be masters of employee engagement and culture building. So I love talking about it because a lot of times frontline employees just aren't given the respect and time and nurturing that they should, and they're left feeling kind of out there on their own. And for business owners, the biggest thing you can do for yourself if you have a frontline team is invest in them because they're the ones interfacing with your customer. It's really kind of strange that companies will not invest in the front line, but yet trust them to interface with the customer. Like if you just think about something like a checkout clerk at the grocery store, they're
Right.
interacting with every single person that comes through there, but they probably receive very little service training, engagement training, how to be influential. And so we think there's just an almost unlimited potential in the front line and an unlimited opportunity to help businesses deal with this because it's not as sexy as sales training for business to business salespeople and territory sales and online marketing and all that. But so much of your business hinges on the performance of those people that we're just very passionate about helping them and building programs that support them.
I love that. I see that a lot in businesses that they invest so much into the business and different areas of the business, but the one thing that they lack is investing in the frontline performance of the business. And a lot of times, I don't know if you've experienced, but I've experienced it going into a business or going into a hotel and you're working and you're trying to have a communication or discussion with the frontline person who is running the front. And they're not really that knowledgeable. sometimes they get very, they show their frustration by acting out on the customer itself. And, and you have a very poor experience. And that's very dangerous because you could have the greatest business, everybody in the back and all the other people that work there could be great. But if you don't have a good relationship, your first relationship, just like they say, first impression is your only impression. If you don't have a good impression with that frontline person, that could be the make or break of any relationship with that company. You don't have a good relationship because, I'm never coming here again. This is horrible, just by the interaction with the frontline person.
You are exactly correct. In fact, in hotels, um, very often the front desk agent is the only person a guest will speak to because if they're coming in for business, they might arrive midday, they check in, they go to the room, they go out to a meeting, they get food in their room, they check out the next morning. It's the front desk is like their entire brand experience.
Yeah.
And you're correct, that can go sideways very quickly if they're not properly trained. And we also a big component of what we do is the frontline leadership. So the people managing the front line make or break the guest experience as well, because we have a motto that you can expect your guests to be treated exactly the way you treat the people you lead.
Yeah.
And so often you have like young managers, they get their first supervisor job and they call it the keyring syndrome. They think it's power. So they start
Yes.
bossing people around. And it's so detrimental to the guest experience because if you're making the frontline employees miserable, you're making the guests miserable.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's hard to measure because people they don't always get asked. The surveying thing is kind of, not always perfect. So you could have a lot of guests coming through a front desk and they're frustrated. And same thing with a bar. Like how many times have you saddled up to a bar and you cannot get the bartender to look at you?
Yeah.
And then that someone got there after you and they get served before you because the bartender didn't look. I mean, this happens. It's a universal frustration, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's
Mhm.
part of also what we're trying to address is just awareness of the guest, make eye contact. If you're a front desk agent, there's a line in front of you, be looking at the person two, three back and just nod at them. Let them
Mhm.
know that you know they're there.
Yes.
And those kind of things that diffuse the frustration, potential frustration of guests. Because we talk about it like this. There's really two things going on. You want to serve the guests and do it well. You also want to mitigate frustration. So
Hmm.
there our training and so we have a technology platform that enables everything that we do and there's a lot of training in it. It has its own learning management system and our training is kind of those two flavors is one is what is the skill building you need to do to get someone to be really good. The other is don't do these things because you're just inevitably going to frustrate the guest. And you
Right.
can avoid a lot of like you were just describing, the front desk agent gets defensive or frustrated because the guest is frustrated, but it all probably stemmed from the front desk agent's attitude. So
Yes.
you can mitigate all of that stuff ahead of time and make your job a lot easier to do and then apply the skills training. So we get to spend time in both sides of that coin, kind of like we another phrase we use is taking common sense and making it commonplace. It's
Right.
common sense to look at the guests when they approach the counter, but often they keep their head down and they're typing on the computer. You're waiting for them to look at you, and that's
Hmm.
just it's so irksome, right? It makes everyone really frustrated, and then you're a lot less likely to buy anything or be receptive to an offer. So yeah, that we spend all of our time dealing with those issues that you were expressing.
I think one of the things I like is when someone is really goes the extra length to help you. I always say if you're supposed to give 100%, you should give 300%. And I love when people behind the desk, use your name and they make it more personable. So then they're not just talking to you as a customer. They're talking to you more like a friend, but you are the customer, but they're making you feel more warm. Like this is a place where you could call your second home kind of feeling. And people like that. People will go back to the same hotel, the same place over and over again because they get that warmth, that feeling of we want you here.
That's right. I mean, Maya Angelou, I think, was the one who said, people will forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly right. Is people's favorite word typically is their name. And so they like hearing their name used. And we also teach them to use their own name
Hmm.
because I think it's Ritz Carlton that has the motto, ladies and gentlemen, serving ladies and gentlemen, right? It's this concept that just because you're the front desk agent doesn't mean you're less than. So
Right.
have dignity in yourself. You stand up straight, make eye contact, use their name, use your name, use the hotel's name. Do it professionally, but you can also make it very comfortable because you can mirror the guest. That's
Yes.
another skill that senior level people or salespeople learn is mirroring, but they don't teach frontline people how to mirror.
Yeah.
And that is also sometimes someone's in a hurry, they come up to the desk and the front desk agent's like, yeah, taking their time. Instead of going at the pace that the guest wants you to go at, right? So
Yeah.
all of those things, but yes, it's all, and none of it is rocket science. It's really just teaching the leaders to build a comfortable culture, have expectations. There is performance expectation, but make the back office a safe haven because
Mhm.
the front, and I was a front desk agent. I didn't mention this before. I came up earlier in my life as a valet and then a front desk agent and worked my way up in hotels to like middle management before I left the industry, and now I'm back to the industry. But so the front desk can be a very thankless place to work. People are often complaining, and if you're creating a hostile environment because you don't know how to lead or people haven't taught you how to build a culture, then you're sandwiching the front desk agent in a vice between the guest
Yeah.
and their internal culture. So you have to make the internal culture a safe haven. And this is true for any business, by the way. Is if you are the outside market is the wilderness, and you can't predict what's going to happen. You might have to fight off the
Right.
bears and the tigers and all that stuff. And if you don't make a safe place for the employees to retreat to, you're going to exhaust them.
Yes.
And you probably know a lot about this, but when you get nervous or you get stressed out, you release cortisol in your body, it's great when you're fighting a bear. You absolutely want that to happen, but you don't want it to happen when you're interfacing with the customer.
Right.
And there's a ton of science, and I'm not the best at this, but when you're stressed like that, your frontal cortex shuts down a bit. So
Yes.
the reason people stutter when they're nervous is because they can't speak. The speech center of the brain has energy has been diverted elsewhere. So the
Yeah.
worst thing you can do is make your employees nervous,
Right.
because then they're going out and facing the wilderness unarmed. And we see this. You can't imagine how often you have a low performing team, and the manager's blaming the team, and the
Yeah.
manager is a tyrant, and
Hmm.
it's like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're creating a culture of fear and anxiety, which lowers people's IQ temporarily, makes them less
Yes.
able to communicate, and then you're putting them out on the stage and telling them to communicate. It's mind-boggling. So yeah, it really applies in any environment. But we see it more in the front line because that's where we spend our time.
It's so true, and many times the upper staff, like the manager and the person who is supposed to be the mentor of these individuals, the leader, doesn't realize that they're actually not doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, and it's causing stress on the employees, which then they feel stressed, and then they're not, they don't perform well because they're under so much stress, and that cortisol is breaking through the roof, and I've been in many situations where I've been with businesses and all of a sudden the manager or the director walks in and you can see the stress in the body language, in the facial expressions. As soon as they walk through the door, the whole energy of the room changes. And now they're all nervous and uptight when they were just relaxed and doing what they had to do. And so it's really the manager or the director, the person in charge really has to think about, how are they going to communicate well with their staff? How could they have good communications and where the staff is actually comfortable to give feedback, comfortable to talk about issues that are happening, and they could have a discussion where it's going to lead to, fruitful solutions.
100%. I mean, it's amazing. The number one red flag for me when we go into an environment is what you just described. If the employee, if the entry level frontline employee's demeanor changes around their boss, then there's a cultural problem going on. If anything, when the boss shows up, they should get more excited. That's
Yeah.
when you know you've got a leader, when they're energizing the team's excited. One of the things that we teach leaders all the time, it's amazing. You do seminars and things, and you get to ask, 30 different leaders the same question. What percentage of your employees do you think have something bad going on at home? And it,
Right.
50, 60, 70% is normally the answer. And then you point out you may be the only bright spot in that person's life. And if
Right.
they're coming into work and you're shaming them or you're shutting down their ideas or you're making them nervous, think
Hmm.
about the damage you're doing. You should
Right.
be their safe haven. You should be the island that they go to for sanctuary. Um,
Yeah.
and it's not hard to do. It's just checking your own ego, really. It
Right.
comes down to just surrender your own ego and believe in their potential, and then invest in their potential, and then they'll believe in you. Like my personal motto is that leaders give trust first.
Hmm.
Because this is another thing that young leaders often don't realize. And you hear people say this, it's been going on thousands of years, that you have to earn my respect or you have to earn my trust.
Yeah.
And what they don't realize, what they're saying is, I don't trust you. And if
Right.
you say to someone, I don't trust you, they're not going to trust you back. And now you're starting off on the wrong foot. We're like, if you hire someone, you better have screened them and interviewed them and checked their references and stuff. But once you welcome them into your environment, you got to trust them, and you got to tell them you trust them, and you got to demonstrate that you trust them. You not micromanage them and nitpick them, and then all of a sudden they're like, I feel trusted, I feel respected. I'm going to give it my all, rather than being in their shell, feeling vulnerable. But it's just, I mean, Gallup does their employee engagement polls every year, and it's always abysmal. It's terrible. It's like 15% of employees are highly engaged and motivated. And this is why, I think, because the leaders, they want to tell people to go do something, but they don't want to show them how to do it.
Yeah.
And then they want to complain when they don't do a good job, but not realizing that they're not doing a good job because they're making them feel like crap.
Exactly.
And then and it's a vicious cycle. It just goes around and around. But I don't want to say luckily, but it's good for us that that happens because it allows us to have a thriving business, helping
Right.
companies overcome that problem.
Now, what are some common problems and some solutions to overcoming this problem that you might see? Because sometimes you see common things over and over and over again. You go into all these different businesses, but the same type of problems are occurring. What are some of those problems, and what are some solutions that you can maybe share a little bit with, different managers or different, high-end people who, might find this very, intriguing. Even business people actually of small and medium-sized businesses can actually use this. Doctors, practices, and everything can actually benefit from these.
Yeah, anyone who has employees can benefit. So the first thing is the leaders at the top, the business owner, the executives, they need to, model it a little bit, even if it's out of their comfort zone. But
Yeah.
one thing that someone can do to start that isn't going to feel too woo-woo or too soft
Hmm.
is, there was a groundbreaking study by a guy named Dan Ariely. He did a TED talk about it, and I think he wrote a book about it. But it basically showed that if you just acknowledge someone's effort in a genuine way without, being overly, thank you, you're so great. But if you just go
Yeah.
up to someone and say, thanks, thanks for doing, working hard, it has the same effect as praise. And
Hmm.
and that effect is double the productivity, like literally double. So leaders that aren't sure how to engage their team, or they don't feel like they can, just walking by and saying, thanks, keep it up, I really appreciate it, and leaving the room is going to have an unbelievable impact on the environment. And slowly they'll start to reciprocate. You'll start to build more of a trusting bond. The other thing is the frontline leaders, make sure their incentives are aligned with their team's incentives. If they have
Right.
a different set of incentives, then they're not going to be as empathetic to the frontline teams as they should be in the pursuit of their mission. So just make sure that there's a benefit to being a better leader. So if you have
Right.
multiple teams in your company and one is doing a really good job with culture and the other isn't, they should be making more money. That's the way to think about it, because that's what's going to drive the value of your business, is aligning the incentives and just acknowledging people's work. Now, when you get more comfortable praising them, but there is a other side to the praise, because if you praise their work but they're late all the time, you might be sending the wrong message. So just acknowledging effort can have a tremendous impact on frontline team productivity. And then obviously training them would be good. But even if a company doesn't have the resources to hire a frontline performance group, where just those couple of things can transform the culture that you're building at your frontline.
Oh, I agree completely. I think it's so important. And what do you think about bonuses or rewards for your frontline people too? If they, if there's certain things that you think might help, initiate, better quality service if they receive certain things.
Oh, we are strong advocates of incentives as long as the incentives are objective and measurable.
Hmm.
Because we tend to work in environments where revenue is in play and we're asking them to upgrade someone or sell them something, it's pretty easy to create incentive plans around that.
Right,
But even in environments where that's not the case, just find the core KPI that you measure success against and create incentive plans because
right.
there's a concept that we're strongly believe in called discretionary effort. It's the
Yeah,
difference between doing a good enough job so their boss will never fire them or
right.
giving it their all. It's like you said, instead
Yeah,
of giving 100%, you give 300%. Well, there's always some that give that effort and some that don't. And
right.
what you're trying to do as a frontline leader is unlock that discretionary effort and incentives and recognition are the two biggest ways to unlock that, um,
Hmm.
partnered with accountability. So, what are the standards and expectations, and then measure how they're doing against those, and then reward those who go above and beyond. And you're going to have a winning formula.
I like that. Now, what's your thoughts about having group meetings? Do you think daily group meetings, weekly group meetings? Because I'm sure communication is really key, especially when you're working with people on all different levels and you want people to be on the same level with the same objective, I believe. What's your intake about, having group meetings? Because sometimes believe it or not, not everybody has those meetings or they don't have it frequently enough.
You're correct. In a frontline environment that let's say is a fairly high transaction volume, like a hotel or something like that. I think pre-shift meetings they used to be the standard. They have fallen off a little, but I think a pre-shift huddle is critically important. It could be 5 minutes. You give them one thing to focus on for the day. You thank them. Let them have a little fun at your expense. Let them make fun of you as the boss, and then go to work. And it's going to set up the shift for success.
Yeah.
For the situations where it's not as transactional, probably a weekly huddle it makes sense.
Hmm.
Because if you meet every day and you're only, doing a couple of transactions a day, it gets to be a little monotonous. But things
Yeah.
like restaurants, bars, front desk, yes, you want to have a little power up rally at the beginning of the shift.
Hmm.
And that's where you can demonstrate to the team that they can trust you because, like I said, it's let them make fun of you, make fun of yourself, do something like that. That way they start to feel more and more comfortable.
Right. Oh, I like that a lot. I like that a lot. Now, what are some of the important factors that you think, businesses, companies, people in hotels should really remember if they want to succeed and they want to do well and they want to keep upscaling and selling more? Is there certain things in mind that, how they should how maybe the frontliners should approach themselves or how they should, teach the frontliners to work with the consumer so the consumer is more willing to want to upscale because it's really how you approach the consumer, just the way you approach them, how friendly you could be, just gaining that trust factor, can make a big difference.
Yeah, the couple things that are really important for the frontline people that might be listening is understand that you are the ambassador for your brand and that you know more about their brand than any customer could ever know. So if you see yourself as someone who is there to guide the guest or customer to their best experience, you're like
Mhm.
their coach going through the process. It takes away the stigma of sales because it's really
Right.
not sales, it's service that happens to improve their experience, which comes with a price tag, but it's not sales. And so the other side of that is once you see yourself as having value, intrinsic
Mhm.
value to the company, then you want to make recommendations to people. You don't want to ask them direct questions. You don't want to say, "Do you want this?" or "Would you
Right.
like this?" Because it
Yeah.
feels salesy, and then when they say no, it's awkward. So what you say is, people that tend to buy that also enjoy this,
Right.
or because you're here with your wife, I suggest the balcony room so that you can sit and watch the sunset. Or because you're here with your children, we have a junior suite, so at night you can put them in the living room and close the
Yeah.
door. You know,
Mhm.
there's a million. You can pick what the benefit and feature is, but make the recommendation, because if you make a closed statement like you should get a balcony room with your wife, she's going to love the sunset, and you
Yeah.
stop talking, because it's another thing people tend to oversell. You stop,
Yeah.
they're going to react to that. And after a while, this is what we teach, but even if we're not there, after a while, you're going to start to be able to predict all the things someone will say back to you. And you'll
Right.
know exactly what to say when they say that. So if they
Yeah.
say, well, how much is it? You can say, well, it's only $40 more a night. Or if they say, I have to talk to my wife, you could say, well, you don't want to surprise her with the sunset this evening. Like you'll
Right.
you'll learn how to do that, and it will become very casual and very natural. And the people will begin to sense that you're actually trying to take care of them. You don't want to offer a solo business traveler a two-bedroom suite. That's just a
Right.
waste. That's just gluttony, right? You want to
Yeah.
offer him the executive lounge so that he can get a cocktail in the evening and not have to go down to the bar, right? So it's those kind of things that become very natural, and that it's true in any environment. Even in a copier store, when people are coming in to do an important report, you don't say, would you like to have this bound in plastic? You say, because it's important, I recommend that you do a spiral binding with plastic covers. Again,
Yeah.
they're going to respond in some way, and then you're off to the races, right?
Yeah.
But that's the big thing, is believe in your knowledge and that how important you are representing your company, and then learn to make recommendations, not ask direct questions. Those would be
I
my two simple tips.
and they're very good tips, by the way, because I think, after you've worked in an industry for a while, you're going to hear the same responses, but you have to know how to answer them. You have to know how to answer them in the right way, because people will feed off your energy. And if you're confident and if you're trustworthy and you say it the right way, people will be more likely to say yes rather than say no. And it all depends on how you approach them and how you're feeling inside, the confidence that you feel, how warm you are to them, how you want to take care of them rather than just, sell them a product or a
That's exactly
service
right.
or a room. And so I think that's really great advice. Now, tell me a little about the services that you provide at your company.
Yeah, so we took 25 years of training and consulting. So we used to go on site to client environments, and we would embed people there that would literally work elbow to elbow with the front line. We did that for 25 years. And we took all of that knowledge. I mean, we added it up at some point. It's hundreds of thousands of hours on the front line coaching.
Yeah.
And we took all of that, all the tools we built, all the methods we used, and we codified them into a software platform that, specific to hotels, as an example, it gives the front desk leadership every single thing they could possibly need to do everything I've been describing. Building the
Right.
culture, it manages incentives, it allows you to set goals, it manages recognition programs, and it has a built-in learning management system. So we took everything you could ever need and put it in a software, so that all the manager has to do really is get the frontline team to engage with the system, and the system is
Right.
sort of the protector of the revenue, and will continue to develop their skills. And then we have optional training days that will come. We can come and do a workshop for a couple of days. We can do new hire classes, that kind of thing. But most of what we do is provide the platform that enables a world-class, upsell, upgrade, program in any environment. We're focused right now mostly on hotel front desk, restaurants, and bars, but we
Hmm.
do still work in car rental. We do still have some work in theme parks. But it's mostly in the hospitality industry, for
Right.
sure. And it's super rewarding, because the other side of this, like back to the human component,
Yeah.
um, the incentive plans that are available when these agents actually engage can be extremely lucrative. We have lots of front desk agents and servers that are in the program that are now making six figures, even though they work at the front desk of a hotel.
Right.
And those are the people that get the highest service scores too, because they're engaged with the guest in an authentic way, and they're actually care about helping them and having them have a better experience. And in some cases, we hear from people that like they've been able to, pay off debt. We had one extreme case, which has always stuck with me, where this was in another country, where the front desk agent came up and said, you have no idea the impact you've had on our lives because my son was going to public school and it was violent and he was being bullied and we were able to put him in private school and get him out of that environment. I mean, like that's like you think you're selling software and you're teaching people to upgrade rooms, but there's a couple 100,000 frontline employees in programs that work with us around the world. And those kind of stories are happening all the time. And that's really kind of what fuels our internal culture is, yes, we want to make money, we want the client to make money, but we really want the front line to thrive because when they
Yes,
thrive, we all win. You know,
right.
the whole environment, the whole culture and the economy at large.
I love that. Now, if you had to take today's conversation, you wanted to emphasize on a couple important factors, what are some things you'd like to emphasize to the listeners today?
Yeah, I think it would be for the leaders out there, because I suspect there'd probably be more leaders than frontline workers listening to this, is make sure that you're creating a safe environment for your teams. They'll perform better. You'll be able to take your own performance to another level through them, and you'll stop wondering why you might be stuck in
Mhm.
performance. Invest in the culture with your people, and if frontline people are listening, believe in yourselves, believe in the importance you have to your company. And then if there are hotel restaurant companies out there, we're here for you. We'd love to help you. It's all we do. We're singularly focused, and we're the best in the world at it. We've been doing it for a long time, and we bought our only two competitors, so that's why I can say we're the best in the world because we actually we bought our competition. But
That's
yeah, I mean
awesome.
they can find us at our website. It's www.frontlinepg like Paul George.com, or they can look me up on LinkedIn and reach out. Would love to hear from them.
I love that. I love that. Well, this has been amazing. Before we go, is there anything else that we didn't cover that you'd like to include in our conversation?
No, I think it's been great. And again, I know we talked offline, but I just want to thank you again for the work you do for epilepsy because that was close to my family and not enough people are involved, and you are, and I really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's very nice of you to say that. Well, I thank you so much for being on the show today. It was very enjoyable having you here. Your knowledge is just amazing. You have a lot of knowledge in this area and it shows. And you've been an outstanding speaker today and you shared a lot of great information that I find that many people in different areas of business are going to find very useful to apply to their own business. And once again, before we go, tell everybody again your website so they make sure they remember.
Yes, it's www.frontlinepg.com, and I'm Geoffrey Toffetti, and you can find me on LinkedIn. And thank you very much for having me. That's been a lot of fun.
Oh, you're very welcome. And you have a great day.
Thank you, you too.